Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. This is the live production on Spreaker.com of our formerly known as podcast for the Doc Owen Show. So, welcome aboard. We're glad you're here. Title of tonight's show might be a little obtuse for some of you. It's the title of it is Right Here in River City, and I tried to download the song that goes with. It's from a play back around the late 60s, 1967 or 68, I believe, entitled The Music Man, and it has to do with we have trouble right here in River City, and that begins with T and rhymes with P and stands for pool, because they had introduced a pool table into the billiard hall, and the Music Man was trying to make a buck. So he convinced them that could cause trouble, and they needed to create a high school band to give the kids something to do besides going out and playing pool. So if you're not familiar with that little jingle, you might enjoy it. Go out to YouTube, look up the Music Man, and you'll see, it's right here in River City, which some people refer to our hometown, San Antonio, as River City. There's probably quite a few river cities across the country.
Yeah, that's true. For
those of them that have copied us. We are all over for the time being, and I'll talk about this in a minute, the social media. In relationship to others on the social media, we are like pardon my Aggie accent, a pimple on a gnat's ass. We are very, very small.
That is pretty small.
But there are those who are bigger that we're going to talk about a little bit to kind of lead into the show. Everywhere we go, we are known as Doc Owen Show, DocOwenshow. You can also find our blog, docowenshow.com, which in probably a relatively short period of time is going to be the best place to listen to the show, because they are systematically weeding those of us in the conservative Christian mode of shows off of the larger social medias, and eventually they'll get around to all of us. That's the name of the game. We will talk about it. And then the other choice is the free app, which cannot be confined. It can't be, our speech can't be restricted on the app. And so we have apps for both the Android and the iPhone. And it's real easy to download. It's called Doc Owen Show. Duh. Download the app and you'll get a notice when we have gone live. And that's where you can also listen to it as a podcast, 5 or 10 minutes at a time, old shows. We've got all of our history out there, et cetera, et cetera. So look around for Doc Owen Show. I'm joined in the studio tonight by...
I'm a Surefire.
And...
Bueller.
Uncle Botsy's gone.
Uh-oh.
He is sliding down the great slide in the sky called Schlitterbahn.
That's right. So he's going to have a schnitzel.
I think he's celebrating a granddaughter's birthday.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to ably fill his time with a previous conversation we had with a very and we're looking forward to the next one. We just haven't been able to work out the schedules with a fellow by the name of Dinesh D'Souza, and we went to see. Well, let's not dive into that yet. Let's do our traditional opening without our historian. I'm will give us an inspirational quote, and I'll give us some sort of a leadership. But they've been taking a kind of a inspirational vein lately, and this one will be no exception. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from a site that I use quite frequently. It's called Brainy Quotes. That's BRAINY quotes.com. And tonight's quote comes from a gentleman by the name of Anthony J. D'Angelo, and he usually goes by the name Tony.
Okay, Tony D'Angelo.
Yeah. He's an American author and also known as a man that sparked a revolution in higher education.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And his quote is, "Develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow."
I like it. I like it. We both like it.
Yes. That's one passion I do have.
Yep.
I constantly ask Doc questions, and I think sometimes I get under his skin.
There's nothing. No, that's not true. There's nothing more rewarding than being a senior student. And by that I mean 10, 15, 20, 25 years senior to your fellow students. It is very eye-opening for both parties. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, tonight the quote comes from God Bless America, a book on the New York Times bestseller list, given to me by a friend of the show. Thanks again, G. And I thought, and you'll understand why I'm going to give you these. This is kind of going over into Uncle Bocce's territory. Why I'm going to give you these 3 data points is very relevant to the rest of the show. The first one, and it talks about our country. It's talking about the United States of America having a foundation of prayer. Okay, This is something that is irrefutable. That you can't. These are facts, and that's kind of in honor of Dinesh. The first day of prayer was declared by the Continental Congress in 1775. Okay? These are the guys that debated and created the Constitution and the Declaration. I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and its blessing on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service. That was moved by Mr. Benjamin Franklin. Quite some time later, in 1952, both houses of Congress called upon the President to set aside a day each year as the National Day of Prayer. Prayer has indeed been a vital force in the growth and development of this nation. It would certainly be appropriate if the people of the country were to unite in a day of prayer each year, reaffirming in a dramatic manner the deep religious conviction which has prevailed throughout the history of the United States. That's a quote from the Judiciary Committee within Congress. And in 1988, 30 years ago, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill marking the first Thursday of May a National Day of Prayer. And he said, "On our National Day of Prayer, then we join together as people of many faiths to petition God to show his mercy and his love, to heal our weariness and uphold our hope, that we might live ever mindful of his justice and thankful for his blessing." That's from President Ronald Reagan. So you'll see why I use those. Matter of fact, I'll give it to you right now. How's that? If you're not aware, you should be. There's a gentleman in the internet media world, using the term gentleman loosely. There's a guy in the internet media world who is huge and was very, very, very instrumental in helping with the election of Donald J. Trump, because he has such a big audience. 3.5 to 4 million viewers a month. That's pretty big. He ranks above a lot of mainstream media outlets in terms of his viewership. So that's pretty good. His name is Alex Jones. He happens to reside and broadcast from Austin, Texas. Mr. Jones has been in the independent media for 25 years. He was way out in front of the rest of us, and he was often referred to as a conspiracy theorist, a wacko, a nut job. He everything he said was off the wall, et cetera, until generally it proved to be true. And he became more and more and more of a problem for mainstream media in the New World Order. And he definitely, without a doubt, calls a spade a spade. He has no reservations and no filter, which they don't like. So just this past Friday, after numerous attempts to attack him with his suppliers, which is impossible because he only sells what he produces. They being Facebook, Google, YouTube, Shopify, and numerous other outlets completely wiped him off of social media. In a coordinated effort, these big monopolistic social media outlets took Alex Jones and his show InfoWars off the air. Gone. Poof. Don't know what his next step is. And if you know of Alex or Jones, or if you know of InfoWars, whether you like it or not, whether you like him or not, or however you feel about it, this singular event, should get you up off of your butt and scare you to death. Think about that. I mean, think about what these internet technology companies have just done. They have just put the United States of America on par with communist China.
That's true.
Think about it. There's another fella that I've been following for a long time, have a lot of respect for. He's a little lower key than Alex, which doesn't take much. He's quite a bit lower key, but he's very, very well connected through his father with the intelligence community. His name is David Hodges. David has a show by the name of the Common Sense Show, and he's really a nice guy. You can just tell by the tone of his voice and the presentation of his podcasts. He's really well known for his podcasts. He wrote today in his daily blog posting that then has attached to it several 5 to 10 minute little blurps. And he does a live show every Sunday evening. The Common Sense Show. Fact: President Trump is sitting in the White House today largely because of the independent media. Fact: President Trump just thumbed his nose to one of his biggest supporters, Alex Jones, when he refused to use the power of the president to rein in the illegal behaviors of the social media monopolies. Fact: One-time staunch supporter of Trump, Gary Haven, and we have had Mr. Haven's partner on the show, and that is, they did the, I'm going to have to think of it as I talk about it in just a minute, but it was the son of the Texas Ranger, Walker. Walker's son is the one that was partnered with Haven in doing that movie, and we had the son on.
You're talking about Chuck Norris's son?
Chuck Norris's son. What did I say? Walker, Texas Ranger. So we had Chuck Norris's son on.
Yes, that's
right.
correct.
I had to go through the whole thing. Anyway, Gary Haven, retired owner of Curves, philanthropist and movie producer, stated on the Common Sense show, in other words, on David's show, that he no longer supports Trump and that he is clearly compromised. In an interview, David said he was shocked but could not deny his supporting evidence. Desperately wanted Gary to be wrong. Sadly, everything he said was true. So, I mean, here's what they've wiped out, and he asked the question in this little article: where will you go for the only true version of the news? If the independent media is taken down and set aside from all of the social media outlets, where will you turn? How will you get truthful facts? You need to be asking yourself that, because it's going to become extremely difficult. And their intent in making it difficult is prior to the 2018 elections, so that you have no alternative voice, so that no one out there is saying that Hillary is going to win by 94%. That's what the mainstream media was telling us before Trump was elected. And had there not been an alternate voice to say, bull sugar, here are the real numbers, then a lot of the people would have believed it and not even gone to the polls. And that's what the New World Order and the deep state want to happen. And they couldn't do it. That's why they lost 2016. That scared them. So this is like double down time for them. They have no compunction whatsoever about taking every one of our voices off of the air. Every one of them. The country of New Zealand, the following entities are actively censoring and banning the independent media. The country of New Zealand has canceled the planned appearance of Lauren Southern. Google, which should now be considered the face of the New World Order. Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all of the mainstream media, print, radio, and television, Patreon, and every other form of social media. David got a note, and this will explain the rest of the show. This was sent to Hodges, a man who I suspect was a artificial intelligence troll, sent me an email I want to share. Here's what the email said. Hodges, you and your kind are an absolute joke. You poor bastards in the alt-right media deserve to go out of business. I am so happy that Alex Jones, otherwise known as Bill Hicks, is going out of business. Your sorry ass is next. You are lucky that we don't kill all of you and your families so you cannot reproduce your kind. Very soon, you poor bastards, you will have nowhere to go to spread your Christian BS. That will indeed be a good day when you are shipped off to a FEMA camp. Folks, these people are serious. On a very, 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 very small scale, from time to time, I have the opportunity to feel the same anger and animosity from fellow citizens here in San Antonio, Texas. And it doesn't take much. I gave up a golden opportunity the other night, and I've been kicking myself ever since. A supposed friend of mine, somebody that would like to be my friend, saw me at a meeting. And I swore the next time somebody asked me this particular question, I was going to have a standard response. It caught me off guard, so I did not, but it will not happen again. If you want to get on my bad side, my really bad side, ask me how the show is going.
Yep.
Standard response. If you listened, you'd know.
That's true.
Because
That's
the people who do listen tell me what they like, and they also tell me what they don't like, which is fine by me. Just to know that you're there means everything to the show. We don't sell anything here. We don't ask for contributions. We don't do anything except try to spread the word and talk some sense into young people. That's all we do. Make them think. Show them a way to connect the dots that draws the correct picture instead of the incorrect picture that they're trying to give you. So I just thought I would throw that in there. But this note that David got is very, unfortunately, very typical. I mean, it is an all-out assault on all things good, all things Christian, all things make America great again, however you want to refer to it. I mean, it's like having a positive attitude in today's world. Some people would have you believe it was against the law.
Yeah,
that
almost
you could,
make you want to feel guilty or something.
Yeah, that you could be put in jail. I mean,
get over it, people.
Whatever happened to have a nice day? I never thought I'd hope that came back.
It went out the window with the brains.
Man, didn't it?
People.
So now I'm gonna put you in the not the way back machine, but the slightly back machine. How's that? In 2016, a fellow that we became friends with by the name of Dinesh D'Souza. He is a rock star among conservative movie producers. And I apologize to Mr. Norris for messing that one up, but that was another good show. But Dinesh has done several documentaries historically betraying, and they are factual. I mean, the guy is a former president of a university, and he knows how to do his research, and everything is fact-based. It's just, you can't argue with him. You might take exception to some of the things he says, but you cannot take exception to his facts. So he's got a new movie out. The name of it is Death of a Nation.
Yes,
is that right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Alma and I drove from San Antonio to Austin, Texas, because
we gotta catch the train, folks. Hold on.
Time to go. We drove to Austin because the theaters here in San Antonio were booked at times and dates when we could go. So we wound up going Saturday night, I guess it was.
Yes, it was.
Drove to Austin, had a very, very nice meal at the place. Who knew it was there? By the way, we're in South Austin, and if you don't know anything about Texas, let me give you a little piece of information. Austin, Texas is the capital. And their city phrase that they wear on their T-shirts, and trust me, they act it out at every given opportunity, is
Austin is weird.
Keep Austin weird.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's why it is weird.
and it has been that way for generations. Mm-hmm. I know that for an absolute fact. So we were a little, I don't want to say apprehensive about going to, and South Austin is the weirdest of the weird part. It's right across the river from the just transiently weird people. It's the truly down and unforgivingly weird folks. We went to eat on the south side of town at a great place called Maddie's, which was like, whoa, where'd this place come from? It was delicious in an old house, and we were like
in the hill country.
Yeah, it was like you didn't know you were in Austin, Texas.
That's true.
And then we went to the movie theater, which was not far from there, and that's why we picked that spot to eat. So we went to see the movie in South Austin, and quite frankly, I was expecting we'd be the only two people in the theater. Austin is not known for its conservative approach to anything.
That's
right?
Very true.
I mean,
I have relatives there, so I know.
The only thing good about Austin being our state capital is it's in the center, so it's completely surrounded by Texas. And, we can try our best to control what they do. So we went to the theater, and lo and behold, we were not the only ones there. The entire theater The entire show was packed with 4 couples. Us being one of them.
That's right.
There were 8 people in the theater.
Uh-huh.
Which I got a feeling for South Austin, that was probably a big turnout.
Yeah.
It was sold out predominantly here in San Antonio, so don't get
That's
me
true.
wrong. And it's a very good movie. It continues the Dinesh D'Souza march of facts leading up to facts, leading up to facts, leading up to where we are today. And this one extends out to the point of, if you think it can't happen in the United States, you are absolutely wrong. I mean, he shows the connection between the Franklin Delano Roosevelts, that generation, and the socialist communist movement, which became Nazi Germany.
That blew my mind. With
Think
the
about
US
that, folks.
connection.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It's about connecting the dots. And it's about and when the dots don't connect like you thought they were supposed to, you better believe the facts that are there and don't deny them, or you'll find yourself in a lot of trouble.
What I like, too, at the end of Dinesh's movies is that he always provides information about his citations of the facts he presents in his movie.
Yes.
It's like, academic paper.
We've got about a 19-minute conversation that we had with Dinesh back in 2016, right after he had introduced the movie prior to this one. And the reason this one, I don't know why it took so long to produce. I guess he had to get his crew back together after they sent him to prison, which Obama did. It was trumped-up charges. Trump is now pardoned him. Yeah, I got tongue-tied when I said trumped-up charges and Trump, when I used Trump twice in the same paragraph.
You got trumped?
Yep, I got trumped. So, we don't really have time to play the whole thing now that I've rattled on, but let's do, we'll dive into it. What I want you to get a sense of is the connectivity between what he was telling us in 2016 and what he's telling us today. And take the opportunity. Go find Death of a Nation by Dinesh D'Souza. D''Souza. Right. All right. So let's play. We'll dive into it 8 to 10 to 12 minutes, and I'll figure out a point to cut it off, and we'll go to the next part. Is that fair enough? Okay. Let her rip. Oh, okay. There we go. Now we are live. May I call you Dinesh?
Sure.
Okay, great. I gotta tell you, you look like you are having an awful lot of fun every time I see you on television or the internet or any type of media. You got a grin like a young boy that's just walked into a candy store. So I totally, really appreciate the way you attack life. Is sort of the way. Correct me.
Well,
if I'm wrong.
I got to tell you a funny anecdote before we start. Someone was saying on one of these shows I was on, he was saying, Dinesh, did you engineer your own federal prosecution for your own career benefit? And I was like, that's the Dinesh's evil genius theory that you're perpetrating. Anyway, we can get started when you're ready.
Yeah, we are started.
Okay.
And I noticed in your in some of the back, one of the quotes that I read about out of the Young Conservative book, that you were talking about the death penalty, and you made the statement that although your personal observation is that none of the criminals who have been executed over the years have ever killed again. So
deterrence does work.
Yes, sir. It does have a tendency to work. Let's talk about. I've seen the movie. Saw it when it very first came out, and was kind of did a fist pump for you. I think you did a fabulous job. And I tell our audience, or who are we after? I mean, this one is not doesn't appear to be preaching to the choir like the previous two did. It's a
Yeah,
bit more of an education.
This was my third film.
Yes, sir.
The first one, Obama, was just looking at the secret history of one man, Obama.
Yes, sir.
And then my America film was a defense of rational patriotism. In this movie, I tried to lift the curtain on the Democratic Party, not just on Hillary, but also on the whole sordid history of the Democrats. And this is a party that has done a beautiful job of covering up its tracks.
Oh, man.
It's been implicated in the worst deeds of American history, and yet it's done an excellent job in blaming its actions on the South or on America or on the Republicans. So my movie and an accompanying book, Hillary's America, the same title,
Yes,
is
sir.
intended to blow the whistle on this.
And it does an excellent job. It doesn't prevent them, but it certainly tends to short circuit their desire to reconstruct history in their own best interest, which I think is probably part of the intent.
You know, the progressives are very clever. They dominate academia, they dominate Hollywood and the media, and so they know they can put out a lot of propaganda without anyone having a big enough megaphone to contradict them. They've also come up with all kinds of fallback arguments so that they don't like to bring up their role in slavery or segregation or the Ku Klux Klan or lynching. But when you bring it up and you force them to answer, they go, well, yeah, but you know, at the last minute, the two parties switched sides. We Democrats became the good guys,
right,
and Republicans became the bad guys. Now, this is all nonsense. I mean,
sure,
on the face of it, the whole idea that two parties would switch places is preposterous, but it never happened.
Oh, I know that, but they unfortunately, there are way too many young people who accept that version. I won't say buy into the argument, but they just accept the version. They don't have the logical thinking skills that they should have to drive through it.
Well, it isn't just that. I mean, even Republicans sometimes buy into it. I remember going back to the 1980s, even Reagan used to say, you know, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me. And so Reagan was kind of implying the Democrats were okay guys, but then they maybe just went off track sometime toward the very end or quite recently. I think when you look at the history of this party, you see that they've been doing bad stuff since the 1820s, which is the days of Andrew Jackson.
So you're saying the notion, of which I am one that exists that has the notion that back in the 40s and the 50s, when I was a young man, and starting to pay attention to politics when I was about 10 or 12 years old, we had what we thought were conservative Democrats. And you're saying that those were, even, we may have had some in Texas, but they were very rare, is what you're telling us.
Well, I'm saying that there are good people in the Democratic Party, but I'm saying that the Democratic leadership, you go back to Andrew Jackson, and you continue all the way, Woodrow Wilson.
Yes, sir.
You know, FDR has the reputation of being a saint, but when you actually look at the way that he dealt with the racists in his own party, cutting deals to block anti-lynching legislation, his sympathy for Mussolini and Italian fascism, all this stuff has been swept under the rug.
I understand. And all of that is pointed out and documented in Hillary's America. So I got it. And I don't remember it as well as you do. But there's an awful lot of content in there that, you know, I'd like for the audience to understand that this guy, he's not just a filmmaker, he's a researcher. I mean, I guarantee you on his epitaph it will go down that he's a prolific writer. I lost count of the books, Dinesh. I had no idea. I mean, you put out something every couple of years at a minimum.
Well, I've done 15 books, and most of my career, you know, I was a writer and speaker and not a filmmaker. I just got into the movies 4 years ago to reach a wider audience.
Yes, sir.
And so part of what I'm doing in this book is showing, and the movie is showing that Hillary, with all her shenanigans, with all the Bonnie and Clyde operations that she and Bill have been running, they are simply the latest incarnation. They're simply the latest edition of a Democratic Party sort of subjugation and rip-off scheme that's been going on now for many, many decades.
So put on your forecasting hat, which you're pretty good at doing, and extend this out for us. When do you see it? My constant question is, when is America going to get enough? I mean, you know,
I think Americans have already had enough.
All right.
But I think they're also fearful about where to go from here. Now, Hillary is a little bit of a different character than Obama. Some people think that Hillary is going to be just essentially a 12-year term for Obama. But no, I think at the end of the day, Obama is an ideologue. Now, to my way of thinking, his ideology is pathetic, it's destructive, but poor man, he believes it. He thinks he's doing good for America and for the world.
He's totally
With Hillary
convinced.
and Bill, these are basically two gangsters. I mean, they're two rip-off artists. They've been running scams since the Arkansas days, and they are on the make and on the take. And so I would expect a Hillary's America to be more third worldish, more gangsterized than an Obama's America.
Yes, sir. I would expect it to be, as you point out, far more blatant. It's already become that in her quest to run for office. It's already become that.
It's kind of like if you have a meeting with the Clintons, make sure you bring a suitcase of cash.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want to go there, but if anybody in the audience happens to have an ex-wife or that they think needs some direction, they should introduce them to the Clintons.
Boy, what a duo this is. And I think Bill was bad enough because Bill is unscrupulous. He's a pathological liar, the same as Hillary. But I think Hillary has a tyrannical streak that we didn't see in Bill.
No, I completely agree. Bill would back off and put on the country boy act, and Hillary makes no bones about it whatsoever. She doesn't even try. To me, she doesn't. If she tries to hide it, she's not very good at it. Let's put it, not nearly as good as he was.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So, what can we do? What should we tell our young folks about? I mean, other than go see the movie and pay attention and read your books or listen to some podcasts or go out to DineshD'Souza.com and take advantage of some of that stuff. How else can we get them? What would you say about the movie that would attract them to go see it rather than the older crowd? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Well, the movie is very. It's both entertaining and it's not only intellectually stimulating, but it's emotionally powerful. I hope you'll agree, as someone who saw that movie, that it has those qualities. I think with young people, the challenge for them is that we've seen in America, and this is across the board, a kind of lowering of the sights. And by that I mean, when I was 19 or 20 years old, I looked up to people like Bill Buckley, Irving Kristol, Solzhenitsyn, Friedrich Hayek, Milton Friedman. And today, you can't find people of that caliber on the scene. Even the kind of statesmen that we saw commonly in both parties in American politics, Howard Baker, George Shultz, who was Secretary of State under Reagan.
Yes, sir.
You don't have people of that stature, again, very easily found today. So we need a kind of restoration of American politics and of American intellectual life.
Oh, and by the way, to back all the way up to the beginning of your statement, it was very entertaining.
Yeah.
You spent your time in the clink very well.
No.
you obviously observed and noted in order to endure. And I could see. I felt like, gee, this probably really happened to him. So
you know what? It was actually exactly the way it was. There's an article out in Esquire today where they go, this guy was so over the top in his recreations. No, the judge actually prohibited me from filming the confinement center, so I had to create a movie set that looked exactly like it.
Yeah, but I still got. I'm sure that was true. I felt that was true. But I also felt like the characters and the information and what you observed while you were there was very real. I just, that I don't know if that was the intent. You portrayed it. You did a great job.
Well, one thing I love about this film is at the end of the film, and this is true across the country, it doesn't matter if it's Red America or Blue America, audiences that see this movie will stand up and thunderously clap at the end. And how often do you see that in a movie theater?
Not very often. Not very often at all. Even if it's a target audience and the audience is 100%. No, I agree with you. The the response that it received in the first time we saw it was excellent. And I didn't poll the house to figure out who was on what side, but it was very well done. There was one other thing that I wanted to add. You used a term. I did some reading on Wikipedia to get some more information than I was able to glean elsewhere. There's a term used. What is it? A polemical film? How do you pronounce it? Where it's an opinion type film. Are you familiar with it?
Sure. The word is polemical, and polemical means a film that is sort of with a point of view. Now, sometimes when the left uses that term, they're acting as though conservative films are polemical or argumentative, but let's say Michael Moore's films or Oliver Stone's films are not.
Oh, correct.
In my opinion, all political films are polemical. They always have a point of view. And the real question is, do you argue for your point of view fairly and intelligently, or do you argue for your point of view like a dummy? And I think one important difference between Michael Moore's films and mine can be described in the level of intellectual content in those films.
I've not seen a Michael Moore film, just based on principle. But I have seen yours, and I would agree. It's just that was what we in Texas call a $1 word. And I'd not ever seen it before, so I had to make sure I was pronouncing it correctly.
No problem.
I'm not often at a loss of words, but for some reason I am with you. What else do we need the audience to know about this film that, without giving away any secrets? I mean, you're a guy, Dinesh, that obviously does your homework. You either, I get the feeling that you personally do an awful lot of your own research, that you like to know for sure the facts and present them in a very entertaining manner, as is befitting of your personality. Is that a true statement? Do you have a crew that helps you out?
Well, we have a small film team of about 10 of us that make these movies. I write the books on my own, typically with the help of a research assistant. And, yes, I am careful about the facts, and I'm careful to know what I'm talking about. But I think also equally important, I'm an immigrant to this country. I was born in Bombay, India. I came to the United States with $500 in my pocket. And so I've seen the American dream, these ladders of opportunity that this country makes available to people at the bottom. And that's really what my politics is based on.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, what scares me about Obama and Hillary is they're knocking down these ladders of opportunity and replacing them with dependency. And so the Democratic model is not one of people climbing up the ladder. It's essentially the Democrats on top of a roof, and they're letting down a rope, and they ask you to hang on to the rope, and they will pull you up. But this keeps you permanently beholden to them, and they never pull you all the way up.
Right.
And so we have whole communities in this country that have become dependent on these Democrats, and they can never get out of poverty.
Why is it that so often, at least to me, it seems so often that foreigners, folks that did not grow up in this country, have a far better view, understanding, and even too often appreciation for what we have here? That's always kind of befuddled me.
Well, I think the reason for that is that when you live in this country, you take for granted the good things that it has,
Yep.
and you tend to compare it to perfection. I call it the utopian or Garden of Eden standard. Whereas if you're an immigrant, you come from another country, and you have some actual basis of comparison. You're saying, okay, well, there's prejudice in America, but is India free of prejudice? Is Venezuela free of prejudice? Do the Russians not have any prejudice? So you're actually comparing America to other countries in the world, and by this actual historical standard,
Yeah.
America comes off looking really good.
Yeah, and we can go visit places, but still not get the true essence of what you're saying until you live there for a while, and really get a feel for it, particularly having grown up in it. And by the way, you became an American citizen in 1991? Is
Yes,
that
I did.
correct?
So I've actually lived most of my adult life here, although the first 17 years of my life in India.
which is tough. You have to be that India, from the folks that I know from there, an awful lot out of the IT business, the academic competition is very, very stiff. So it speaks volumes for you have to have come over here as an exchange student and graduated from Dartmouth and been the editor of the school magazine, et cetera. That just, I don't think people understand how much that says.
Well, I think it's also that those countries are defined by a lot of gangsterism and a lot of corruption. You saw it if you watched the movie Slumdog Millionaire, how the country is run by gangs. My wife is from Venezuela. It's the same thing over there. So we come to America and we want to live in a country where you're uncontaminated by corruption, at least not corruption in the same blatant way.
Right.
And that's really what the Clintons represent. They represent the increasing third worldization and gangsterization of America.
I completely agree with you, and I thoroughly appreciate your voice in pointing that out, and we will do all that we can as well. What else would you like to leave with our audience? We're coming up on about 20 minutes, and I'm very respectful of your time. So,
well, I'd just like to say that for most of my career, I was a writer and speaker. And the reason I've got to making movies is that movies are a way to reach people that you wouldn't reach in Barnes & Noble or wouldn't buy a hardcover book. I would urge people to go see this movie. We're going to re-release into a bunch of theaters in September. And if you go to Hillary'sAmericaTheMovie.com, that's the website, you can watch a trailer, plug in your zip code. It'll tell you where the movie is playing near you. And my book of the same title is available everywhere.
Absolutely fabulous. And he will be here, well, this will air live on a Thursday night, so he will have been here the night before, but the movie will still be in the theater. So here in San Antonio. So we'll definitely promote it all that we can. Dinesh, thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Thank
Look forward
you.
to seeing you soon.
Hey, thanks so much. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Folks, I know that was considerably out of sequence, but if you're paying attention, you'll notice that the message has not changed, and actually has only, the need for the message has actually only grown stronger. Now, his latest movie, Death of a Nation, it starts out with what happened to Germany. And so you're drawn into the fact that what they did and attempted to accomplish cost them Germany. I mean, they have rebuilt. I mean, they never lost the name, but insofar as the nation was concerned, it got wiped out. And that's just the opening few minutes. The rest of the movie helps you understand, holy macaroni, that could happen here. Not only could it happen here, folks, it is happening here. That is Dinesh's call to order. And it is the call to order of a lot of us in the independent media. And as gone on in the last week, the independent, we're absolutely being taken off the air without any repercussions. And before you start hollering First Amendment rights to free speech, the challenge to that is these are private companies. These are not government-owned entities. These are private, although they are public in the sense that they sell stock. They are private in that they are owned by stockholders and not the government. So they can't be held accountable for breaking the First Amendment. I don't know how else to put it. The only way they can be held accountable is in their pocketbook. And they think that they are bigger than all of us and that they have enough financial backing from their base, which is obviously quite different from ours, that we don't have enough clout to make them feel it. I don't know the answer. I do know that if you just, as we learned back in school, if you just extrapolate out into the future by looking at the past, and we've talked about that numerous times on the show, that if you know enough about history and you go far enough about history, and I've forgotten who said it, but we used the quote on the air, well, I think it was Churchill, the farther back you look, the farther into the future you can see. Mm-hmm. Right? I think that was Churchill. Mm-hmm. So the challenge for everybody listening is we're living in the moment that it's happening, so that it's easier to see as history or easier to project as the future than it is to recognize what's happening to you at that very moment. That's just a fact of nature. You know, we take it in and we sort of absorb it, and then we reflect on it. And I'm telling you, what we're going through right now is absolutely parallel to what has been done in other communist, tyrannical, socialistic environments. And if you don't believe that it has an ugly end, pick up a newspaper or go to the mainstream media and check out what's happening in Venezuela. Because that's exactly what the people are revolting over, is the tyrannical policies that have been forced down their throat for a couple of generations. And the problem with having a government that rules by intimidation and force, it's no different. Look at it this way. It's no different than working in an environment that is run by intimidation and force. If you've worked at all in the outside world, you have seen at least two different management styles. One of them is kind of a hey, rah, rah, we can do this, sort of a leadership style that, you know, gets involved and gets their hands dirty and becomes a member of the team, et cetera, and everybody feels good about what they're doing and they do a great job and the business grows. You've all worked for that guy or girl.
Yes.
You've also worked for the guy or the girl that said, damn it, I said do it and do it now. If you don't, I'm going to fire your ass.
Yes.
The latter is what you're seeing the results of in Venezuela. And it's what you're seeing the results of when it happens, when they try to take down social media, because they don't want the cheerleaders, the yell leaders, the Make America Great Again people to get that voice going too well. If we get it going too well, then their form of leadership and management has no place to hide. And that's basically what Mr. D'Souza was saying. And before we leave the show, his name is Mike Norris, and the name of their movie is Amerigeddon. Mm-hmm. Sorry for the lapse. Had to do a little homework while we were all listening to Dinesh. This is something that, folks, take this to heart. And, you know, next week we will follow up on this thought process and talk about what happened to God and country. And you'll find out that it's become more country. And that's it. And they've been very successful at taking God. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.